Oh my God, kids, media literacy, I beg. Hello, calflings. Once again, there is media discourse. Once again, I'm irritated about it. And so, here we are. I don't know why I'm in my feelings today, but I am. And so I just needed to, I think, eject it from my system. So I'm going to get ready for the day, put my face on, and we're going to together yell about the latest reactions to the latest Odyssey trailer, which has jumped out. Why does this keep happening? Okay, so if you're new here, I am excited for Christopher Nolan's adaptation of the Odyssey. It has been a hot minute since we had a good sword and sandals film, I feel. And the last time that there was a sword and sandals attempt at anything in the Trojan cycle was bad. It was bad. So I'm excited. I like mythology. I like when interesting filmmakers do interesting things with it. But I'm not gonna lie, like the pre-reactions to this film are already kind of making me tired of it. And I don't like feeling this way. And here I am contributing to the problem. Gotta let the dog in. Like, it's become something of a meme in and of itself to opine that media literacy is dead. But guys, we're not beating the allegations. So when the first or initial teasers or trailers for the Odyssey dropped, there was immediately a flood of online discourse, mostly headed by a certain type of man, TM, we'll come back to this, that immediately started crashing out over the costuming choices with the rallying war cry that the costuming that we were seeing from the teaser wasn't historically accurate. I made jokes about this at the time because it was and remains deeply funny to me. The Odyssey is part of the myth cycle of ancient Greece, the whole ancient Mediterranean world actually. And it's not historical, guys. It is mythology. It is mythos. It is fantastical. It is not designed to be real history. And if that is the lens through which you are viewing it, you are going to be disappointed. The myth cycle of the Trojan War goes back to at least the Bronze Age, and some historians speculate back even further, that there are echoes of even older cultural histories and myths interwoven into it. The idea that anything about the Troy Saga is and should be taken as history is just silly on its face. This is an odd hill to die on. But again, there's a category of online dude that loves historical war dramas. And do you know what? Boy, same. There is absolutely a place for historical and historically accurate war films. But I stand by my take that it's really deeply weird to expect the Odyssey to be one of them. Anyway, I'll link that portion of my previous rant about why it's silly to expect historical costuming accuracy from a narrative that literally has the gods as your chief costumer and armorer, but you know, that's just me. The crashout this time though is different. Number one, it's different because we actually have a proper trailer now, not just, you know, a short teaser. We actually have footage from presumably the completed work that features dialogue. And this is where the problems come in. If you go into certain corners of the internet that apparently I algorithmically inhabit, maybe I'll come back to a bit of why that might be. This is very much a self-created problem, but these corners of the internet immediately lit up with rants about how the dialogue in the trailer to the Odyssey movie immediately betrays how historically inaccurate this film is, because the actors are using modern vernacular and apparently American accents. This is dumb. The other thing that I have seen opined on in a couple places now is that it also looks like it has been shot like a modern war film would be, and that this is wrong for this kind of storytelling. This is dumb too. Basically, this whole thing is making me so frustrated because it is betraying layers to media illiteracy that genuinely frustrate me. And ultimately, all of us, myself now contributing to the problem, are reacting to art that we don't physically have in our hands yet. This is Sturm and Drang for very little reason. And yet, because I believe so strongly in discussions around media literacy, I can't help but have opinions, and so that's what we're hashing through today. So, okay, let's talk about historical accuracy some more. Let's start with language. The idea that anachronistic language doesn't have a place in period filmmaking requires you to be ignorant of so many historical films that it's a little bit breathtaking. But I want to use a couple of examples to demonstrate how deliberately using modern language in historical settings is typically done deliberately as an artistic choice on the part of the filmmaker for reasons. Okay? One of the best examples that I can think of recently is one of my favorite dark comedies, The Death of Stalin. I love how in The Death of Stalin, all of the main actors keep the actors' original accents. This is a deliberate design choice, and I think it works for a number of reasons. Number one, it works because, lest we forget, the Soviet Union was a union of many different countries who have different languages and accents all of their own. Soviet Belarus was different than Soviet Ukraine was different than Soviet Russia. It makes sense, therefore, for any film to portray a variety of accents in the general council. But also, the majority of Western audiences, only really recognize a vague sort of Hollywood Rousseau attempt at an accent. So what is a way that you can show that these are all different people from different backgrounds, different educational backgrounds, different cultural or regional backgrounds, without defaulting to them all using the same kind of default Hollywood Russian accent? Let them use their own. Brilliant. One of the things that I really, really like about The Death of Stalin is how Stalin, the actor for whom I completely misremember his name, and I apologize, but he's portrayed with a Cockney accent, which is hilarious because Cockney accents are often in the media associated and historically associated with kind of a rough and tumble working class, right? Which is exactly what Stalin kind of came from. I mean, he was a rough and tumble gangster. So to portray him not as like this terror of a Cold War version of a Russian in the American, especially, or, even English imagination, but as a Cockney gangster is fucking hilarious. And also not inaccurate. It is an artistic decision that makes sense with both historical context and that works as an artistic choice for the film itself. It's really, really smart. If Death of Stalin is one of the better examples of a deliberate choice being made about modern language used in a more period setting, let me give you a bad one. It's a couple years old now, but the Dakota Johnson version or adaptation of Jane Austen's Persuasion. This was bad. It's not just me that thinks that. I'm pretty sure that's kind of the universal critical consensus about this film. It wasn't good, but I'd argue that it wasn't just bad for the anachronism of the period setting in the modern language. As I've just said, that can work as a design decision if other design decisions taken in the context of the film also make sense and work together. But a lot of the design decisions in that adaptation of Persuasion just were really discordant, and language was among them. Unless you think I'm a purist, please remember that one of the best Jane Austen adaptations of all time is Clueless. All of which is to say that when I see the trailer for the Odyssey and I see Antinous mocking Telemachus for missing his daddy, I'm not going to freak out about that in advance, because why not? Like, why not use modern language in a mythological setting? It's not inherently bad or wrong. The question, of course, will be, do the other choices in the film make sense around that choice? And as a reminder, we don't have the film in our hands yet. We are prejudging artistic choices that we don't have the context for. And this is just bad media criticism in general. Obviously, I'm contributing to it right now. I'm part of the problem. I recognize that, but I want to speak on it on the wider context of people pre-reacting to media and art that we don't have in our hands. By all means, if this weirds you out in advance, don't go see the film. Maybe you'll be happier. But if you are genuinely excited for this kind of film, you shouldn't be put off in advance by a single artistic choice that you haven't experienced in the full yet, right? I guess I'm saying be patient. The other thing that I started to see that frustrated me was a series of assumptions being made about this film. That the tenor of the trailer seemed very like a modern war film. Like, it seemed more like a World War II movie. Just the lighting and the music choices and, how things were set out. Like, I saw a lot of discourse spring up at the same time, and to be fair, it didn't seem to be bot created. I do try to be wary of that. But like, oh, this looks like a modern war movie for the modern man. To which I say, and? Like, there's a tendency, once again, there's a tendency to prejudge media that we don't have yet, but to do it through really, really sloppy and casual lenses. And this reaction that I'm seeing is a lot of people going, oh, this is a movie made for men. Oh, this is just another war movie. Oh, this is another movie about masculinity. Okay. And, like, don't get me wrong, I understand the emotional flail here, I really do. And a curse review of any of my other videos, you will get a long diatribe about modern media and masculinity. But I'm not going to sit here in front of you and say that the Trojan War saga has nothing to do with masculinity, because boy, does it. I mean, if I'd actually argue that the Trojan War saga is a whole meditation and discourse of what it meant in the context of the ancient world to be a good and noble and heroic or aspirational kind of man. That's what a lot of great art is about. And in, the context of human history, yeah, the Trojan Saga is absolutely part of that. It's kind of the point. To freak out that the Trojan Saga seems very male-centric is just to be fundamentally unfamiliar with the text, because it is, and that's not a bad thing. It doesn't make the story inherently less valuable. It doesn't make it inherently less worthy of examination or art, and it doesn't make it less enjoyable. Like, truly, like, put a pin in that. But like, the themes of the Iliad and the Odyssey completely revolve around concepts of what it is to be a good, admirable, or heroic man in this society. All of the interpersonal conflicts highlight different traits, set up different people as admirable, denigrate certain actions as being undesirable or even taboo. Like, the whole thing, that's what it's about. So to freak out that that's the vibe that you're getting from a movie based on these texts is just to be media illiterate. And it's weird, and I want people to stop. You have to have a cursory knowledge of the things that you're trying to critique. And because without it, you're just speaking from ignorance and an emotional reaction. Emotional reactions are not invalid, but they cannot be the only thing that we judge art on. Yes, art is about how it makes us feel, but it's also about what it is that the artists are trying to say, just as much as what we, the audience, receive from that speech. Sometimes these things are very discordant, and that's fine. That's probably means it's good art. But like, To not have a cursory knowledge of the text that you're freaking out about 6 months before you even get a movie in your hands is just lazy, and it bugs me. And not for nothing, I really don't like this pre-reaction, again, to a film we don't have in the context of the freak out about masculinity itself. Because I would argue now is exactly the time for a thoughtful, talented, decorated filmmaker and cast of ferociously talented actors to maybe give us a new piece of good art on masculinity. I'm serious. Count me among the many, many people criticizing modern masculinity and in the many, many ways in which it has failed to adapt. But also count me amongst the people who yearn for we, the society, to give boys and men context of what it means to be a good man now in our current world. You cannot critique people for being bad at something without giving them measurable goals, art, references, just offerings of all kinds, diatribes, discourses, meditations, mediations, and even arguments of what it actually takes to be a good man. And art is one of those things. The Iliad and the Odyssey, is a whole discourse on when is violence acceptable. When is it justice and when is it revenge? When is it divinely ordained, i.e. acceptable in the context of the religion and the society and the politics and the laws of this time? And when is it taboo? It is a discourse on love and devotion. Who is deserving of loyalty and who isn't, and how you judge that, and how that context can change. There are themes of piety towards the gods and filial devotion to one's family and duties to one's household, and also loyalty and obligations owed to other men primarily, but also other families, or the laws of xenia and hospitality, i.e. society and what we owe to each other. These are all major plot points of the Trojan War cycle. All the characters in the Trojan War cycle are in and of themselves examples of different kinds of men who can be admirable and despicable at the same time, and how their traits and their fates and their intentions and their actions are constantly either fucking shit up for other people, or putting them on the course to their own fate, or indeed getting in everybody's way. I am famously an Agamemnon hater. That man sucks. The House of Atreus sucks. They are a toxic blight on the mythological ancient world. But Agamemnon and Menelaus are shown as being kings whose rights have been violated. Menelaus's wife has been kidnapped, run off with another guy, depending on which interpretation you take, and he is trying to assert his rights as an aggrieved husband. Not only that, he and a bunch of other kings have all entered into a mutually assured destruction pact with one another, so that if Menelaus's right to his wife, Helen, is challenged, all of these other men are politically obligated to come to his defense. So, again, in the context of this world, these men owe a debt of loyalty to another guy, right? But his brother Agamemnon is taking shameless advantage of that and kind of created himself to be high king over all of the Greeks off the back of his brother's rights being infringed. He's a jerk. Agamemnon is also just an asshole, and this puts him into conflict constantly with Achilles, who thinks he's a bad king and is a bad war commander, and sometimes flat out refuses to obey him, which in the context of this world is kind of a dangerous thing to do. He is acting out of disloyalty, but also, is he kind of entitled to do that, or does it make sense because Agamemnon is a bad high king? That's the tension between Achilles and Agamemnon, and they take it out in, various ways of, bitch slapping one another and taking each other's, concubines. It's fine, guys. and just basically beefing with each other the whole time. Achilles throws an absolute bitch fest and, sits out for a good portion of the last phase of the war because he's in a fight with Agamemnon until his lover, Patroclus, is killed. And he then rages out because his boyfriend has been murdered, and he lays waste to the Trojan army in response. Relatable. So again, in one context, Achilles is kind of justified in his wrath and his anger, and in another one, he completely overreacts. The question there is, what makes a good warrior? What makes a good man? When is it acceptable to defy your nobles or defy your oaths? And when is it acceptable or even noble to completely crash out because wrong has been done to you? Over on the Trojan side, King Priam is shown as being a good and loving father. That is his character in the Trojan Sagas, to be the grieving father who is watching his city and his sons die around him, for this cause that, he has various feelings about at different points in the saga, but he's shown as being a very devoted paterfamilias to his sons and to his city. What does it mean to be a good king, to be a good father, to be a good head of the nation? The best character, in my opinion, in the Trojan Sagas is Hector. He is the most noble character in the Trojan Sagas. If there is an accolade to be given, Hector has it. He is a good son. He is a good husband to Andromache. He is a good father to their son Astyanax. He is a respected commander of his men. He is a defender of his city. He is pious towards the gods. He's everything you could wish for in this context, which is what makes his death so tragic. The point of Hector dying being a tragedy is that in this world, in this society, in this context, he is a good man. And in the wider context of this story, I think he's kind of the only guy who doesn't do anything wrong. So his death is inherently the most tragic as a result. His brother Paris is just a little bitch, start to finish. And that's the Iliad. That is the Iliad. That is prelude to the Odyssey. Odysseus is, in many ways, kind of the last of the great Greek heroes in the myth cycle, right? The golden age of heroes and monsters comes before. The Trojan War is kind of the wrapping up period of that time frame. And after it comes the rise of man. Odysseus is the last great hero of the ancient Greek myth cycle. And he's a complicated figure. He is famous as a warrior, but he is more famous as a trickster. And something that's really fun about the ancient Greek mythos and mythology is how much it valued cunning in its heroes. His epithet in all of mythology is wily. Wily Odysseus. I love it. Don't get me wrong, Odysseus is still a fuckboy. I still don't like him. I still think he is the villain in so many ways. But as a protagonist, he's kind of hard to beat. He is a trickster. He is a liar. He is a serial man whore fucking his way across the Aegean. He is literally an absent father and husband, although admittedly not entirely his fault. But he is a good king. He is a good commander. He is respected by the other war leaders in his band. He is the brains behind the Trojan horse. He is devoted to his patron gods and goddesses, Athena in particular, and never wavers in his devotion to them. He's the hero of the story, even if I don't find him particularly admirable or heroic in a lot of ways. That's me imposing my modern tastes on a historical mythological character. But just because he's not my favorite hero doesn't mean that he doesn't give us things to say about masculinity, both in the context of the myth cycle in which he's taking place and in historical criticism and media that has come after, or in the modern world now as we take on a new interpretation of that. It's fine. It's fine for Christopher Nolan to do a kind of World War II-y feeling, bro forward movie about masculinity, if in fact that's what he's doing, because again, we don't have the movie in front of us because That's what the story's about. It's fine. It's fine. Like, if Christopher Nolan pulls off a modern meditation on modern masculinity, say that 5 times fast, and he does it using one of the oldest texts in the Western canon, if anything, I kind of hope it serves as another nail in the coffin to the whole manosphere thing that we're living in at the moment. So him and Louis Theroux confronting the manosphere, one Jungian archetypal myth at a time. Like, if it's not clear, I'm excited for this movie because I want to see modern takes of mythology from competent filmmakers. That should be something that any person who likes media should at least be interested in a cursory way. But I'm so frustrated with kind of the pre-crash outs to media we don't have in our hands yet. And again, I cannot stress enough that I know that I am contributing to this problem by even filming myself ranting about this. But here we are. I want there to be discourse about media. I really do. It's so much fun. I love doing it. I like thinking about it. I like reading about it. I like participating in it. But this current moment in which we live is so reaction heavy and based that I think, number one, it incentivizes just emoting in response to snippets of media when we're gifted it. Which I think is bad for us as a society, she says, participating. Honestly adds fuel to me to the accusation that we're losing aspects of media literacy. I do think we need to wait to have a piece of media in our hands before we can really form full opinions about something. It's fine to be like, ooh, that's a weird choice and I'm not sure what to make of it and I'm gonna have to wait and see. But to completely wash your hands of and declare an entire movie you haven't seen yet as being chopped because of a couple of lines of dialogue you saw in a trailer is weird. Stop it. To demand historical accuracy in costuming and language is weird. Stop it. To declare that an entire film that you haven't seen yet is only catering to a sexist male gaze is weird. Stop it. And frankly, to demand that a piece of media conform to you, the main character of the universe's every expectation, is weird. Stop it. Christopher Nolan is an Academy Award-winning director, right? He knows what he's doing. He clearly has an idea and a vision, and we, the prospective audience, don't know what it is yet. We have only glimpsed fragments of it. And his back catalog is wildly diverse and interesting. Like, he's done hero movies, and he's done historical movies, and he's done fantastical science fiction-y movies. Like, let the man cook. And finally, I cannot stress this enough. Just because something is not for you, i.e. you are not the intended demographic audience, does not automatically mean that something is bad, invalid, poorly made, wrong, or, I don't know, abusive in some way. There are plenty of things made for different demographic gazes that do not inherently make them bad or wrong. I think certain discourses around things like the Bechdel test have broken people's brains. But things made for a specific gaze are not inherently off limits to anybody else. To use some of my favorite examples, popular romance are things that are traditionally, historically constructed for the female gaze. But we're having a bit of a moment where those assumed boundaries are kind of being broken through. Like, just go onto YouTube and you will find whole reaction channels and review channels and criticism channels of presumably straight men discovering a lot of female-coded media for the first time and gleefully enjoying it. Like, truly. And I'm not just talking about romance here. I'm talking about things like historical film adaptations, which tend to be assumed for female audiences. like Joe Wright's adaptation of Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley, for instance. That is a beautiful piece of filmmaking, but because the subject matter has been historically assumed to be for the female gaze, there's a bunch of men who haven't seen it. I love watching men discover things that are historically coded for the female gaze and discovering that they like it. It is a balm to the soul. Likewise, there are a lot more things, admittedly, created specifically for the male gaze, from Tarantino to whomever you want to throw out there. Like, yes, patriarchy, whatever, more things are built for the male gaze, but that doesn't mean that they're bad art. And it doesn't mean that they can't be engaged with, like, positively and critically. One of my family's favorite movies, like, all of my siblings and I love this film, is the film Master and Commander. That is a film that has a female on the screen for half of a second. The rest of it is a war movie that takes place aboard a British naval ship during the Napoleonic Wars. It is about men. It is about comradeship. It is about leadership. It is about warfare and conflict and loyalty. There is not a single female character in that film. That's fine. It's a good war movie. It's one of, in my opinion, the best historical war movies ever made. Just because it is structured for a specific gaze and speaks to a certain audience and doesn't include certain demographics doesn't mean it's bad, doesn't mean it's malicious, doesn't mean that it's poorly made, and doesn't mean that it's bad art. People's automatic reactions, often to media that we don't actually have yet, to assume that it's bad or malicious or poorly made or without thought as to artistic decisions, is bad and frustrating, and I want it to stop. We have so much media in our hands that we can contend with and react to and talk about. God, can we talk about it? I can talk about it. Presumably you can too. That's why you're here. Love you. To pre-react so much to a movie that hasn't come out yet and won't come out for 6 months. Why? What a waste of energy, but also what a revelation that in many cases you don't actually know what you're talking about when it comes to the source material. You probably aren't engaging critically with costuming or writing choices in other pieces of media. You probably don't have any other reference points. Again, you want to talk about Odyssey adaptations, one of the best ones of all time. Argue with the wall. By freaking out so much in advance to something you haven't seen yet, to me, just once again, shows that people don't know how to engage with media as much anymore. And again, I know that I am being fed a very specific set of algorithmic recommendations based on my algorithm. I am from a history family. One of my parents is literally a classics professor. But I do think that, the criticisms or the complaints that I see and I'm seeing more and more of is that we are becoming a media illiterate society. I think are true and is something that I'm genuinely worried about, because there is more and more evidence and reporting on how people aren't reading as much anymore. People don't read as many books as they used to. I think even things like short form video are fragmenting our attention. People are outsourcing their educations to things like ChatGPT. It's bad. I know it's bad, right? But the only way to combat that is to do the homework, is to watch as many sword and sandals films as you possibly can. If you want, good war films, watch them. Watch all of them. We are blessed with so many good World War II films. If you want films about modern masculinity, there is a whole canon and professors can give you recommendations. By all means, read widely, react widely, deep dive into costuming, historical and otherwise. Deep dive into films that play with modern language in historical settings. Ooh, what was another one recently that I really enjoyed? A Netflix series, The Decameron, which was a fantastically wacky adaptation of, a Renaissance poem done in gloriously modernist kind of style. Like, I want more of that. We need more things that take the classics, the canon of global, to say nothing of Western literature, and make it accessible to people, because we are losing cultural references. We are losing our ability to evaluate media based not just on its source material, but based on more current references, based on historical context and current context. Like, all of these things, you need to have a wide appreciation of a lot of different mediums, a lot of different themes, a lot of different artistic takes on things to truly appreciate art and media. And we're losing that. And that worries me. It frustrates me. It makes me irritated. I truly don't think I know how to wrap this up, except to say I'm still excited for this film. I'm still excited to see Nolan's take on one of the oldest texts that we have. Nothing in the trailer, and indeed nothing in the discourse, is diminishing my opinion that this could be a really, really cool, timely, interesting film. If it's provoking these kinds of reactions, maybe it has something to say. Or maybe it's just going to be really cool to look at. That's fine too. Also, finally, like, basically I saw someone online whining that, like, ooh, the Greeks didn't talk about dads and daddies this much. Maybe I got some news for you about the ancient Greeks.